Happy New Year, everybody. I feel a little bit like the Queen, sitting addressing her nation, stroking my dog. You right? Sorry it's been a little while. It's been a bit hectic over Christmas and New Year. We had the family out. They flew out to Pisa and we had a week near Florence, which was wonderful. And then we had a very hectic Christmas visiting a lovely Italian family of about 15 people. It's been a brilliant time. It's been really lovely. We're now in Rome. Pip's sitting looking out the window. It always amuses me in the morning when I draw the curtains and we both look out. Makes me feel we've got something in common. We both enjoy what's out the window. I'm not going to bother to show you where we are today. It's called Roma Camping Village. It's the closest one to Rome Centre. It's only about 10 minutes to the Vatican on the bus. Which I'm not even sure if we're going to do, because Martin keeps saying he's an atheist and why would he want to see the Vatican, so I don't know. I'd quite like to see the Sistine Chapel, but I know there's a huge queues and things like that. But we are going to go a walking tour tomorrow if we can find it. So I just want to congratulate everyone who's doing Veganuary, Vegan January. Very exciting that it's such a big movement that's taking off, and I thought I'd share just a few of the things that I found useful. I've been a vegan for about 4 or 5 months now, and started out, as you know, all excited about juicing and blending and drinking water. And those are the 3 things that actually have gone by the board a little bit. Not that I don't believe in them anymore. I think it's harder to drink water when it's cold, although I am going to try and pick that up again. And juicing and blending, I can only really sort of conclude that I maybe got a little bit bored with it, and it's always quite hard and expensive to keep buying the fruits and vegetables. This probably isn't what I should be telling you with people starting out. If you're starting out and you get a juicer and a blender, it's absolutely a brilliant way to start. Juices are lovely, carrots, apples, etc., whatever you've got, and blending is really good for smoothies. But I do use both of them still. The juicer a bit less now, although I want to start picking up with my fruit juicing again. But the blender I use an awful lot for. Probably the main thing is my Hallelujah hummus at lunchtime, and I've got more and more into this. So although I've come off some things, the hummus has really taken off. And this is any tin of beans you've got, or a handful of beans that you've soaked, and you blend those up after you carefully rinse them, because the water around it can be a bit gassy apparently. You blend that up with lemon juice, and I've talked about this quite a few times actually. Herbs, spices, whatever chutneys you've got, whatever fruits you've got, whatever taste you fancy. It's incredibly versatile, and you put just enough liquid in to make a puree. If you want it as a dip, you put a bit more, and then you can dip in your rice cakes or crisps or whatever. If you want it as a spread, then it's just let Pip out, then keep it thicker. I'll often put in a tomato or cucumber to give it a little bit of liquid, and I absolutely adore my hummuses. It's so much nicer than what I always used to have, cheese and pickle sandwich. So every day, almost every day really now, when we're on the road or at a campsite, if we're not going into town, I'll make one of these hummuses, and we both really love them. And they're a great dressing if you have it alongside something. And then in the evening, I've always got a little bit left because I make a complete can every day. There's always some left in the fridge, so I'll get that out, and instead of snacking on something naughty in the evening, I'll get some rice cakes or this Melba toast that they're so fond of out here in Italy, and just sit dipping that into it as a snack. So I think hummus is one of the biggest things I want to share with you. The other lovely thing is that I've said before about the salad dressings. You can use a date as a base to give it sweetness, and again put anything in it with the vinegars, etc. If you want to make the full-blown mayonnaise, which is gorgeous, you have to use the bean juice, and you've got lots of that from all your hummuses. So you use the bean juice with some oil, and then all the flavourings that you love, salt, pepper, chilli, any herbs you've got, and you put the oil in at the end and you blend that, and those 2 things you need the blender for. So I do use my blender every single time I'm on the campsite, but less now for smoothies and more for hummuses and mayonnaise and that sort of thing, and date dressing. And then the other thing which I have continued to do, which is still very healthy, is make my granola myself, which as a vegan I think is a great thing to start the day with, unless you're going to start with a juice and a green smoothie, which is fine. but this gives you a bit more to go on. This will keep us both going till about 1 o'clock. And what I do is I'll buy a healthy over-the-counter muesli. That's one with no added sugar. So it'll just be oats plus. It's usually either dried fruits or nuts, which they have here. And then I'll add to it my own nuts, extra dried fruit. I nearly always include goji berries or cranberries, or chopped up dates or prunes or apricots. Apricots in particular, that keeps us regular, are great. And then all the seeds, I've got poppy seeds, chia seeds, sunflower seeds, sesame seeds, linseed, and then recently I found some toasted quinoa, which are the tiny little white things that you, when it nearly finished this load, but you might be able to see the tiny little white balls around the bottom there. Well, that is roasted quinoa, tiny little like puffed rice, but it's puffed quinoa. So that's pure protein, so that goes in here. So this really packs a punch. Martin has it with his dairy milk, I have it with whatever milk that I can get, and I am still making my milk. I do tend to buy it when I'm feeling lazy. I still find soy milk has tasted a little bit too strong and try to get rice or oat milk, but when necessary I can make my own milks, and again you need the blender for that. So if you're starting out, I would suggest getting a blender, and a juice is great for motivation, I think. I went right off my morning pickup. I think the ginger started to play havoc a little bit with our tummies. So we both got a bit scared of ginger, and I backed off. And I've actually ended up going back to my cup of black tea with milk in it, with my plant milk, which is quite funny really. I think it's really hard to break habits of all your life. I'm in my 60s now, and I've always woken up with a cup of black tea, and black tea on its own in the morning is disgusting, but with a good dollop of milk it's okay. So I have gone back to that, but I'm quite up for starting up with my pickup again at some point. I'm not ruling it out. So then on to the main meals. When my family came over, I made them the hummus, which they loved. I made them a really hearty soup based on dried beans, that soup mix you can buy, throwing all sorts of vegetables in, including lots of tomatoes, and blending it up either completely smooth or a bit chunky, and then potatoes, etc. You can make a lovely cheap vegetable soup, which everyone loved, with bread with it. I have been making my own bread using fresh yeast in the fridge, and also dried yeast, and also flatbreads, and they're all really easy to make. It's just a question of trying it, and it's lovely because you know it hasn't got any milk in it. I've been using sunflower, margarine, butter, which is fine. I'm going off it actually. I don't really need butter anymore. Sometimes I'll have it as a spread in its own right rather than underneath something, but in the morning if I have bread and jam, then I'll just have the jam and I won't bother about the butter. It's strange, I wouldn't have thought that would happen to me, but it has. Oh, he's crying. The evenings, when I look back at my videos early on, which I did last night, and I do apologise for lots of repetition. Come on, Pip, come over here. Come on, keeps wanting to go out, then it's freezing out there. It's actually in the news today about how cold it is in Eastern Europe. Are you cold boy? Are you? Yes, cold boy. Well, in the very beginning, when I was doing all the vegan stuff, I was doing all this sweets and cacao powder and banana and freezing it, and it was all exciting and lovely. I don't do that anymore. I do the occasional frozen banana if I want a sort of, you know, fruity, wet type puddingy thing. Not very often though. I tend to, all I have now, if I've got a sort of sweet tooth, is just a square or two of chocolate, like 70% Lindt or something. Here's Martin come back from his shower. And that does it. So I think that's all right.
Sorry, you're talking.
I'm just doing a video. Good shower?
Lovely.
Yeah, he always goes and tries the showers out first, and he comes back and tells me exactly how to set it and how the hot water works, because every campsite the shower's always different. So this should be good because it seems a really posh place. What are you doing? So yeah, so I was pleased about that. When we go to vegan cafes, which we haven't done for a long time actually, we'll often share a piece of gatto or something, just out of curiosity, but I find I don't really need it as much as I did. And although I'm not losing a huge amount of weight, I'm not putting it on. I realise that, which is good. We tried out my scales over Christmas with the family. I got one of the family members who knew how much they weighed to stand on it, and the scales were wildly off, so we just left them behind. Probably not a bad thing. So that's really good. Some of the main meals I can recommend. The oat almond quiche is gorgeous. I think that's on my video number 2 in this series. You just mill up the almonds and the oats, and you put some coconut oil on it to make it set. You cook it, and then you saute out whatever vegetables you want on your quiche, and then you blend up silken tofu with a little bit of liquid and any flavouring you want. Pour that over the top and cook it, and it all sets. And I like to put a bit of yeast on as well, the that essential yeast, whatever it's called. Brewers, is it not brewers yeast? What's that yeast called that I have in the thing?
Essential yeast.
Is it called essential yeast? Yeah. So as far as the supplements go, I do have that essential yeast on lots of things because it's a little bit cheesy. There's not much B12 in it. You need a load of it to get your B12, you know, daily requirements. So we always both take a B12 each, which I think you should do. Still take my flaxseed oil capsules and that's it. We've been remarkably healthy. Neither of us have been ill at all, which has been great. Other main meals that I can recommend are the gado gado meal. I made that for the family and they love that. That's a hot peanut spicy sauce you pour over hot potatoes and cold salad. Very interesting mix, and actually it's supposed to be made with eggs, so they all had hard-boiled eggs when I made it for them last week. So that was good. In fact, Sam, my eldest, said that was the nicest meal he can remember me ever making, which is pretty good. And lastly, I just want to tell you about the Christmas we had. We went to this carnivorous Italian family. I haven't forgotten about you. And they thought it was absolutely hilarious that I was vegan. They couldn't quite understand it, and they felt so sorry for Martin, who really, really played along with it. And really gave him a lot of lovely food and everything, all the while really turning their nose up at what I was eating. And I got a tofurkey, which looked a bit like a turkey, and they all had a bit on their plate, and they actually thought that was okay. Funny enough, I didn't particularly, because I don't need that stuff anymore, that rubbery pretend turkey taste, and it also gave me the hiccups. But what I did like was my lovely nutty sludge, which admittedly looked like sludge, and it's not very attractive, and so they were all actually disgusted by it, and they all, out of politeness, had a tiny bit on their plate. But even my lovely hostess couldn't finish hers, and I'm not kidding it, they only had a teaspoon each, and it was absolutely delicious, wasn't it, Martin? My stuff, yeah. my nutty sludge, my stuffing. Martin nods.
Famous.
Huh?
Famous.
Famous. It was really tasty, and I thought afterwards that next time we go there, I want to present that nutty sludge in a different, maybe roll it in sesame seeds or little stuffing balls or something. So it looks nicer. I think, you know, if people had thought of it as stuffing, they would have thought it was alright, but because they didn't know what it was, and it was a funny grey colour, and they didn't like it at all. So it gave me a really weird feeling to have people quite critical and quite scornful of the way I eat. That was quite, you know, a first for me. And I felt a little bit embarrassed because they were a bit worried about, you know, giving me enough food, which of course they did, because there was always lovely vegetables on the table. And then the very last thing I want to tell you about in Italy is the way the pizzas are. It's wonderful. You can have a pizza without cheese, senza formaggio. No, is that right? Yeah, formaggio. Senza formaggio without cheese, dairy-free. Senza latini or latinicini. I've been learning it. And I absolutely love these. You can get a whole wheat cereal or whole cereal dark pizza, which I'll show in a clip in a minute of what we had yesterday, what Martin had, black almost, and you can have just vegetables on it. So I always say pizza senza sono vegani, I'm a vegan, pizza, vorrei pizza, I want a pizza senza formaggio, and uova, that's egg, and burro, and butter, e tutti verdura, all vegetables. And they take me at my word with tutti, and I have all vegetables on a pizza, roasted vegetables, absolutely gorgeous. Aubergines, courgettes, of course mushrooms, peppers, huge olives, and they're nicer pizzas than the old sort. So there's no question of missing pizzas, because I really don't. It is lovely. So I'm now trying to recreate those pizzas at home. And I had a lovely sandwich yesterday, which I will show you, which I bought at a service station, and they warmed up, and that had roast aubergines and roast courgettes in it. And I thought that was a great idea for a sandwich filling. So on that positive note, I hope I've inspired you, and I hope you do buy your juicer or blender if you're just starting out. And the very best of luck with it all, and well done for doing it. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye. We were on our way to Rome, and we pulled over to a service station to have lunch. Well, I didn't have anything in the house, and I went in to see what they had. And they had this vegan sandwich, which they warmed up for me, caldo. And it's got tomatoes, aubergines and courgettes in it, all warm. Absolutely gorgeous. And I'm having that with veggie, Alfredo's veggie, potato pomodoro and spinach, that's tomato and spinach, and that's for my pudding. So I'm very happy about that. I just want to show you Martin's pizza from last night, which was amazing. It's actually black cereal, they call it. It is supposed to look like that. It's lots of different kinds of cereals together and really tasty.